Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Zaleski Sports Show, and welcome to 2020. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll start with saying that. Jason Zaleski here with Steve Maves as we bring in 2020. It's the new year. It's the same us, though. I don't do any of the resolutions. My resolution is to be everything that you expect me to be. How's that? That's a pretty good way to go, I believe. Talk about NFL playoffs. Get that underway today. Recap last week's shortened high school sports schedule. Just a few games as school got back into session on Thursday. And we've got a full week of high school sports this week. We'll talk about UW Stevens Point Pointer women's basketball, too, briefly. We will start, though, with the NFL as playoffs are here. And it really, Steve, it's what you play the whole regular season for. And unlike the fraudulent NBA, in the NFL, every game matters. And every game gets us to where we were this past weekend. As a matter of fact, even things that happened on the last week led to where we were this past weekend, including the New England Patriots ending their season with a loss to the Dolphins. And it was full strength, Patriots-Dolphins. It was not like the Patriots kept Brady on the bench and kept Belichick back at the hotel or something. I mean, it was all hands on deck. It was full steam ahead, and they still lost to the Dolphins, which meant for the first time since 2010, they hosted on Wild Card Weekend, and their guests destroyed the house when they showed up. Derrick Henry ran roughshod over the New England Patriots. Of course, people are excited, happy, I think, that the Patriots lost. No real dog in the hunt, no horse in the race, except for the fact that sometimes you just get sick of seeing the same teams win over and over and over. So a lot of people around here and nationwide, maybe even worldwide, happy that that New England lost. It was a 20-13. It was a late Tom Brady pick six that iced it, and so a lot of people are thinking, I didn't mean to spend this much time on the Titans Patriots reports, or I think it was opinion writers. Brady's done. He's not coming back. Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I think Tom Brady and everything I know about that organization says that they're coming back with it again next year. But Tennessee moves on in the playoffs. Yeah,
and like you said, Derrick Henry absolutely dominant from beginning to end for the Titans. They only completed 8 passes all game. The Tennessee Titans did. But going back to Week 17. The Dolphins beating them with Ryan Fitzmagic, and then Ryan Tannehill coming with the Titans, the former Dolphin, knocking them off on Saturday night. So a big win for the Titans. Mike Vrabel, the former assistant for Bill Belichick, a former player of Bill Belichick, and knocking off his old team. Houston Texans getting a ugly win over the Buffalo Bills on Saturday as well. Houston and Buffalo did everything they could to lose that game. Yeah. Somebody had to end up winning, and the Texans ended up getting that big dub on Saturday afternoon into Saturday night.
Yeah, you're right. That was the first game of the playoff weekend. Houston over Buffalo in overtime, 22-19. If New England beats the Dolphins, like they should have, and it's just inexcusable to lose to the Dolphins. But if they do, they probably are hosting Houston this week. Probably, the matchups might have been a little bit different, but it really just goes to show that every game is important in the NFL. Whereas in the fraudulent NBA, you lose a few here and there. Who cares? And everybody's in the playoffs at the end and playing 15-game series and all this other nonsense in the NBA. That's why we don't talk about that association on this show ever. Never have, never will. All right, and then into Sunday, we started the day with another overtime game. Now, I believe Packers fans were cheering for the Vikings on Sunday, and that worked out for the time being. That worked out as the Packers 2 seed, and they were waiting to play the higher of the remaining seeds. The 49ers also waiting over at Levi Stadium, almost in San Jose, California. They will play the lowest remaining seed. So as it was shaking out, as that game goes to overtime, Packer fans still with hope that they may be getting a lesser team, so to speak. The Vikings and Rudolph catches a touchdown in the corner of the end zone, thrown by Kirk Cousins. Cousins, I've got all kinds of opinions about Kirk Cousins. We'll leave most of those out of the show. But really, Steve, for me, the story of that Vikings-New Orleans game, again, 26-20 in overtime, two things. One, the Viking defense was just on fire the whole day, really. And then two, in the NFL, it's a coin flip that oftentimes decides the winners of these games. And in this case, the coin flipped, and it's a 50-50. That coin is rotating and circulating through the air, and it lands in a certain way. And in this time, the best player on the field, Drew Brees, never, and maybe even Hill, Taysom Hill, two of the best players on the field, never even saw the field because the coin happened to land in a certain way. A lot of people clamoring for college overtime rules. There's an argument for that, and I may make that on a different show. But 26-20. So for the time being, Packers are thinking, all right, we're going to maybe get the Vikings here. Who knows? Or maybe we'll get the Eagles, even better. And because at that point, Minnesota was destined for San Francisco. Yep. That was locked in at the end of that one. And so now Packer fans became the biggest Philadelphia Eagle fans of all time. And, the Eagles will disappoint, and they disappointed Packers fans anyway. They were an underdog no matter what coming in. Carson Wentz gets bonked on the head in the first quarter of that game, and Seattle goes on to win 17-19. Russell Wilson returns to Wisconsin. Steve, we got Packers and Seahawks coming up next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Russell Wilson 0-3 at Lambeau Field in his career, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But like you said, a big win for Seattle. DK Metcalf, unbelievable rookie year, 160 yards, the most ever for a wide receiver in his first ever playoff game. Russell Wilson getting the job done. Josh McCown came in. He had opportunities. 40-year-old quarterback for the Eagles. Got to give him credit. He was coaching high school football a couple months ago. Yeah. Came in and backed up Carson Wentz, and Carson obviously getting hurt again. I'll say it again, I've said it to a lot of people, the only Packers game that I've been to this year was Packers-Eagles, and that was the only home game the Packers lost.
Right.
And so maybe it was all right that the Eagles lost, but Seattle's going to be a tough task, a tough out. Going back to that Minnesota-New Orleans game, New Orleans losing in back-to-back playoffs in overtime. They lost to the Rams, obviously, in a controversial call last year in the NFC Championship game, losing this year in against Minnesota 26-20. Taysom Hill, former Packer, one of those guys that Ted Thompson let go, very questionable, obviously, now that the Saints have used him in so many different ways. And going back to the Brady talk about him being a free agent, Drew Brees being a free agent, we were talking before we went on air about who the Cowboys might pick up. Dak Prescott's a free agent for coaching. Right. A lot of talk, a lot of obviously early rumors. Sean Payton possibly going back to Dallas. We'll see about that. A lot of this is why the NFL is a 12-month sport. Right. I mean, have off season, have the draft in April or May. All talk, all NFL, all year long, and that's what the NFL likes to have.
Yeah, absolutely, and we love it too, and we'll help out with that year-long talk for the NFL. So Packer fans maybe feeling good coming into this game against Seattle. I would say gets by Philadelphia 17-9, and the score was even closer than that. What I'll tell Packers fans is the Eagles probably were the best defense in the playoffs coming in to that game, and so those 17 Seattle points were hard-earned, and against a different defense, that's probably 34 points. Steve mentioned Wilson 0-3 at Lambeau Field. Both teams in their last 4 they're 0-2 on the road, so neither team has won a road game in the last 4 meetings. That would tend to favor the Packers. Again, home field advantage. You had a week off. Maybe the weather gets a little cold. Last night in the post-game with Minnesota Michelle, Russ said, hey, maybe there'll be snow. Yep. Maybe. A lot of things could happen there to affect that game, but it should be a good one. 11-5, or now technically 12-5 Seattle. and 13-3 Green Bay. The whole playoff weekend starts on Saturday in Santa Clara, California. Like I just call it the San Jose 49ers. That's essentially where they play. The Vikings take on the 49ers. That is a game that starts at 3:30 Central Time on Saturday. So you got plenty of time to get up and get some stuff done around the house, get some chores done, get some work done, and then settle in for Vikings 49ers. And the day on Saturday finishes up in Baltimore with Tennessee traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. That game starts at 7:15 on CBS. And then on Sunday, it all starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So again, get out to church, get your stuff done, get your laundry done, get your food made. You got plenty of time. And then you get to have an appetizer with the Texans at the Chiefs. And that should be a pretty good one. I think those are two really evenly matched teams. You would think, though, the Chiefs in Arrowhead, the Mahomie is out there. You would figure the Chiefs are going to have a pretty good shot at it there. And then, as I mentioned, 5:40, it's Seahawks Packers. Steve will give you 10 seconds one more time. Last word on Seahawks Packers.
Yeah, and especially at 5:40 in the afternoon, weather should be cooler. Depending, obviously, it's been a little warmer this January so far, but. All in all, Packers, very healthy team. Seattle banged up quite a bit, so Packers should have the edge. 3.5-point favorites coming in to Sunday afternoon.
All right. I mentioned we would put a bow on last week's high school sports. Most teams, actually all teams, were off during the week. Everybody came back on Thursday. And we got after it almost right away. One of the big games, one of the anticipated games before the season started when the schedule came out was boys basketball. Auburndale at Stratford. That game was on Friday night, and that was a big Stratford win. Most of you had a chance to watch that game online at ZaleskiSports.com, and if you did, you saw Stratford win 61-34. And it was a 30-5 run, I believe, in the opening moments of that game, and really set the tone. Obviously, you get out a 30-3 run, you set the tone early like that, Steve, and the Merriwood South now is dominated by the Stratford Tigers.
Well, and the big thing that I saw, Vaughn Bright came back for the Stratford Tigers. Mm-hmm. I think that it might have been his first game back since his injury during the football season. And so with him and Ben Barton down low and the guards that Stratford has, it's pretty much impossible to stop them at times. And Auburndale saw that on Friday. So a big win for Stratford. Obviously going to be a very, very tough team to knock off at any point in the season. I believe they go down to Alaska or something for a crossover tournament with Minnesota in a couple weeks or in a little while. But that should be a good test. But Stratford Tigers obviously a very talented basketball team as well.
Girls basketball on Friday night in Marshfield. The Tigers take care of DC Everest 54-46. That game was it was a 1-point game with 3 minutes left in the game. Marshfield got a little bit loose with the ball, and we see this from time to time, and we'll remind everybody right now that the object of the game is the ball. And so you got to take care of the ball. Now, obviously, you got to score the ball, but before you can, you got to take care of it. Tigers got sloppy towards the end, let DC Everest come back in it. Danielle Minsaz led the Marshfield Tigers with 15 points. Minsaz, a freshman for Coach Varsho, as Coach is putting together, still kind of forming that team and putting it together. Minsaz not scoring early in the year, but she's all over it right now and led, again, the Tigers to the win on Friday night. In hockey action, we'll go through the scores that we know anyways. We kind of breeze through this. This is not an official, full, comprehensive list of scoring. You can find that online. Marshfield took care of Merrill Wausau East 7-0 shutout. A.J. Treeweiler between the pipes shuts out the Merrill Wausau East squad 7-0. Boys basketball on Friday night. Everest takes down Marshfield 48-42. It was a low scoring game. I mean, Everest came into that game, Steve, averaging 70 points a game, but that Marshfield 4 out, 1 in, sometimes 5 out offense really slows the pace of the game down. And you're not going to score many against Marshfield, but Tigers going to have to score a little bit more than that, though, to win here.
Yeah, and that's what you got to do with some of these high-powered offenses We talked about Neilsville earlier on in the year. They score close to 80 points a game, 75, 80 points a game. That's what you got to do. You just got to slow down the game, play a half-court offense, and really figure out what you can do offensively. But as you mentioned, a big win on Friday night. Going to Pacelli as well. Spencer Rockets falling to Pacelli for the first time this year. Mason Schlagenhoff, absolutely fantastic guard. If you want to go and watch a great point guard in central Wisconsin, Mason Schlagenhoff for the Pacelli Cardinals is fantastic. Lucky if he's 5'9". He's 5'9" in the program, but he can move very quickly, very low center of gravity, and can get by the big defenders and really get to the rim and put up some big shots from beyond the arc as well.
Yeah, Spencer Rockets boys basketball dropped their first game of the year. That game was on Friday night as well. It was also live at ZaleskiSports.com. Any of those games that are live, you can watch in full replay in their entirety over on YouTube. Just search out Zaleski Sports there. In other Wisconsin Valley boys basketball scores from Friday, Merrill over Stevens Point, Spash High School, 75-68. And then East over West, first-year coach Troy Piper finds out the crosstown rivalry and finds it on the winning side as East takes down West 76-61. We'll move over to other Valley scores in girls basketball. It was Wausau West over East girls crosstown, 74-62. No real surprise there. And then Spash over Merrill, 88-60. And a big score there for Coach Terpstra and his Spash Panthers. Columbus Catholic over Greenwood on Friday night, 55-21. You can rewatch that game if you so choose. Addison Byrell again, big night, 27 points. Her and Annika Brown combined, let me make sure I get my totals right here, 34 points combined of the 55. But Addison Byrell, again, she scores 21, outscores Greenwood on her own, 27-21, but the Dons win 55-21. Again, that game was on Friday night, and those are the scores that we'll at least call out here on this particular show. We'll take a look now, Steve, at the week that is upcoming, and it all starts tonight in Marshfield. It is Granton at Columbus Catholic. This is a game that was postponed a couple weeks ago due to snow. They will play tonight. You can watch live at ZaleskiSports.com. Tip 7:15. You can also listen live on 92.3 FM WOSQ. And you can watch online and listen all at the same time, which is a pretty good way to go. And then on Tuesday, as we go through our live schedule, again, all games found at ZaleskiSports.com. Neilsville at Colby boys basketball. Steve mentioned Neilsville Warriors. They're going to score a bunch, and the Hornets will have to run and race with them to keep up in that game. Boys basketball again in Marshfield. Gilman at Columbus Catholic. The Dons will play 2 back-to-back games with the help of that makeup game tonight. And again, you can also listen to that one at 92.3 WOSQ. Stratford at Assumption Catholic. Girls basketball Tuesday. Steve will be on the call for that game. And we look forward always to Assumption Royals basketball. But the Stratford Tigers and Brianna Ackley are going to come to town. It'll be one of the few times, Steve, that the Royals' height will be matched, and especially by the big scorer from Stratford, Bree Ackley.
Yeah, and Stratford knocked off Assumption last year in Wisconsin Rapids, so it should be a good game from start to finish, as we mentioned. Emily Bowen was back in a boot last week with her foot injury. They destroyed Port Edwards. I think it was 64-15 or something. Took down the Blackhawks there. But as you mentioned, it should be a good game. Always good between Stratford and Assumption in girls basketball. The big thing, as you mentioned, is the height. So we'll see what Maddie Bone can do along with Jesse Grundhofer and company. From what I've seen, the Royals got brand new uniforms, and they look pretty sharp. So we'll see those on Tuesday. And as you mentioned, you can watch that at Zaleski Sports.
That's right. That will also remind me, Maddie Bone, Day in the Life, premiering tonight. And you can watch that on Facebook first at Zaleski Sports to get a primer for Royals basketball even tonight. On Wednesday, Steve will travel to UW Stevens Point and bring you men's basketball highlights. Those can be found on Facebook at Zaleski Sports Wisconsin. On Thursday, girls basketball, Loyal at Columbus Catholic. Steve, 5-1 against 5-1. It's a knot at the top of the Clover Belt East in girls basketball. Neilsville, Loyal, Columbus Catholic, all at 5-1, and there will be some separation on Thursday over in Marshfield. Again, you can also listen on the radio, 92.3 FM WOSQ. But the Clover Belt East is tough in girls basketball.
Yeah, as you mentioned, 3 or 4 teams right there at the top. Remy Geiger and company at Loyal, always a fun team to watch. Columbus Catholic, as you mentioned, with Annika Brown and Addie Byrell getting the job done. So that should be, as you mentioned, one of the top games in the Clover Belt. I guess not early on, halfway through the year already, but it should be a good game to watch, listen to, and enjoy if you can make it up to Marshfield on Thursday night.
That's right. We will take to the ice for the first time this year on Thursday. DC Everest at Wisconsin Rapids hockey. You can also listen to that on 1320 AM WFHR. And then our first time we'll take it to the mat. It'll be wrestling in Athens. Stratford at Athens. Merriwood Wrestling, we look forward to that one as well. Again, all these games live at ZaleskiSports.com. Watch it live. Friday, Wausau East is at Marshfield in boys basketball, Wisconsin Valley basketball there. And Spencer at Neilsville boys basketball. Now the 2 top, still undefeated Spencer Rockets first place in the Clover Belt East. Spencer Rockets will go to Neilsville, and depending on that outcome on Tuesday with Neilsville at Colby, Neilsville could be just a 1-loss Warrior squad or maybe a 2-loss, but it's a big game either way. And that's why we have it live for you to watch. And then boys basketball, again, will catch the Dons one more time this week with highlights, and that's Columbus Catholic at Greenwood. Highlights on Friday, and we'll wrap up the week. We'll bring you more UW Stevens Point pointer action, this time men's hockey, as Steve will show that. And again, all pointer highlights are found on Facebook at Zaleski Sports Wisconsin. Steve, you had a chance to check in with Coach Shirley Berg and the UW Stevens Point Pointer women's basketball team on Saturday. Again, those highlights are out there, but Steve will tell you now what he saw on Saturday.
Yeah, it was a good game. Opening conference game for the women Pointers against River Falls. Jumped out to an early lead in the first quarter. Again, in women's college basketball, they play quarters and not halves. They switched that a number of years ago, which still kind of confused me because then high school went back to half. So, but yeah, they got the job done against River Falls. Taylor Greenhack from Sauk Prairie, our Zaleski Sports Player of the Game. Amber Bayman from Tri-County, fantastic sophomore for the Pointers. River Falls made a nice little run at to start the second half and get into the fourth quarter, but the Pointers have a huge task on Wednesday as they head down to Whitewater. The men host Whitewater, as we mentioned, on Wednesday. So it should be a good test for the Pointer women. But as Coach Shirley said, that they have probably the deepest WIAC that they've had in a number of years. The conference from top to bottom should be very competitive the rest of the way. So as we mentioned, a huge win for the Pointer women getting off to conference win to start the year.
And as high school sports fans know, around this area anyway, a severe lack of games on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Yep. If you're a local sports fan, you like to go watch these things in person. Well, Pointer athletics generally take place on Wednesdays and Saturdays, so that it fills that gap nicely. For one, but for two, I mean these are exciting sporting events. I mean these kids, these are the collegiate athletes. And even at the WIAC level, and Steve, you've now sat there on the court. It's a big jump from high school to even UW Stevens Point. I mean the quality and just the passion maybe. And you get to take the best kids from the area and get out there. So and maybe just talk about that a little bit and that immediate quality and. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. That made a quality difference from high school just to UW Stevens Point.
Well, and yeah, you get these athletes that have been playing been playing the sport their whole lives. I mean, some of these men and women have been playing since they've been in second and third grade, and so once you get past the high school level, it takes that next huge jump because there's only a number of athletes that go from high school and play at the collegiate level, and as we mentioned, these Division III athletes. They don't have scholarships. They don't have school paid for them. They are there because they love the game and they think that they can make the next jump to play at that next level. So we talked about the the difference between high school and college, the atmosphere at the Quan Fieldhouse at the university and the Berg Gymnasium for men and women's basketball is outstanding. As you mentioned, Wednesdays and Saturdays. If you have never been to a UWSP hockey game at KB Willett Ice Arena, it is a sight to be seen. I mean, everybody is excited. Everybody's there to have fun. But the jump, as you mentioned, between high school and college, because these kids, or not kids, these players, they practice their whole lives to get to this level, and it's a life in college if you're an athlete. You from start to finish, you usually have weightlifting, school, practice every day, all day, and the Pointers are no different. And we've seen that in men's basketball last year in men's hockey, going undefeated and winning the national title, the first time that's ever happened in Division III hockey history. So Pointer men trying to get back on the get over that hump again. They host Hamlin on Friday, and then they host another MIAC team in Augsburg on Saturday. Augsburg, a team that is ranked as they were as they beat Eau Claire before the Christmas break. They beat them twice, knocking down the number one team in the country. So Pointers on the up and up in men's hockey as well.
Yeah, you mentioned, or we mentioned men's basketball over at UW-Stevens Point. UW Lacrosse in men's basketball ranked 15th in the country. And UW-Stevens Point was prior. They were ranked 18th. They still are receiving votes. They're, I guess, technically you are right now ranked 28th, but they're right there. And some good quality sports going on all across the area, and a lot of options for everybody here to take advantage of. All right, we'll wrap up with boxing. We had a chance to, for the first time in Zaleski sports history, bring you live boxing that came from the 2020 Wisconsin State Silver Gloves boxing tournament in Neillsville, and it was a great time. We got to see a lot of good bouts, 23 in all. So we got our fill by the time that the night was up. But we everything from Pee Wee 60-pound all the way up to our main event of the night, which was 201-pound Junior Olympian division, and Neillsville's Trumel Myers victorious on Saturday night, brought the crowd to its feet. Trumel, he was excited when we got there. He initially just couldn't believe that Zaleski Sports was at the boxing tournament, and in a good way. And then we got to have fun the whole day, and got to take in again some of the state's best youth boxers. Again, they were all the way from Pee Wee 60 pounds all the way up to 201 pound, the really big kids. I said a couple times during the event, though, I didn't see a single boxer there that couldn't take me down. So I would not have gone up even against the 60 pounders. That would have been too much for me. But a lot of fun to be had. And I know they've got the Community Boxing Club in Neillsville has got an event coming up as they celebrate their 10-year anniversary. Look them up on Facebook and go over there and support this great organization. And these another organization in the area that's keeping these kids active, keeping the kids busy, and getting them involved in perhaps a future career. And that's what it's all about, is getting the youth to get their futures figured out. Yeah,
and boxing is such an interesting sport to do because especially from as little as you said, 60-pound peewees, they have to be in the gym all the time. They got to be training. They got to be have obviously sports take a toll on everybody. But to be able to have your little guys in the gym, punching those bags, punching each other, and that's sometimes what you got to do, especially if you're at home and you don't have a sibling or something and you just want to get a little aggression out, go to the gym, join boxing, and beat up on somebody else. So that's and it's always fun to see where these kids come from. Like you said, Trumel probably has been boxing since Pee-wees, and so it's one of those sports that you got to give a lot of credit to those people because there's not a whole lot of accolades, a whole lot of praise for these boxers, and to be able to go out there and get the job done as they do, hats off to them.
Yep, highlights of that event also on Facebook at Zaleski Sports. Again, we are live tonight in Marshfield. It is Columbus Catholic boys basketball taking on Granton. You can also listen on FM 92.3 and then live all week. Keep it locked to ZaleskiSports.com for daily live sports schedules. For Steve Mays, Jason Zaleski here telling you to have a great weekend. Go Sports!